Ceres wakes up in a cheap inn, heart heavy from a dream about the past. He wonders why those old memories are surfacing now of all times. In his dream, he was back with the Guiding Light party 10 years ago. As their magic swordsmen, they had all set out together to defeat the Demon Lord. He thinks about how well they used to work together, despite being away from home for so long. But the reality of what happened next still stings. The hero, Zekt, delivers the news with a cold expression. He tells Ceres that he's being kicked out of the party. Ceres had a feeling this was coming. On the surface, Zekt is an amazing hero, but deep down he's got a massive problem. That problem is his obsession with women. He puts his own desires ahead of everything else, even long-term friendships. Zekt claims Ceres is a liability who will only end up dead if he stays. He practically forces him to leave for his own safety. Mel, his childhood friend, doesn't even defend him. She looks away, wearing a necklace Zekt clearly bought her, choosing the hero over him. Zekt condescendingly suggests he go back to their village and live as a rural adventurer. He just wants Ceres out of the way. Ceres decides there's no point in fighting it. He's got enough experience to join an S-rank party easily, so he's fine moving on alone. He gives them a polite farewell, thanking them for the time they spent together. Zekt just smirks, glad to be rid of him. As he walks through the city, Ceres reflects on the secret he's never told anyone. His concern for the girls in the party was never romantic. It was something else entirely. The truth is, he's reincarnated. In his past life, he was a 42-year-old father working at a trading company in Japan. Now that he's in this new world, he's honest about his taste. He prefers mature women. He finds a local obsession with teenage girls completely absurd. Since he's no longer part of the hero's party, he needs to sort out his life. He decides to make a stop before heading back to his old village. He visits a local establishment and meets a dealer. Ceres explains that he's looking for a domestic servant to help him out. The dealer takes him to the back, where the more economical offerings are kept. Ceres is disgusted to see people caged like animals. But then he spots a face he recognizes. He's absolutely stunned to see Shizuko, Zekt's mother, trapped behind bars. Shizuko was actually his first love. Seeing the woman he admired so much in this state hits him hard. The dealer quotes a low price, saying she's over the hill at 30. Ceres doesn't hesitate, offering a full gold piece if they let her shower and provide new clothes. The deal is done, and the mark on her hip confirms she's now bound to his service. Shizuko is clearly embarrassed by the situation. Shizuko apologizes for being an old woman that he had to buy. Ceres hands over the ownership papers, trying to reassure her. They go to a shop so she can pick out something better to wear. Ceres waits patiently while she gets changed. She comes out in a fresh dress, and Ceres can't help but tell her she looks great. They sit together by a fountain to talk. Suddenly, Shizuko drops to the ground to swear her loyalty as his slave. Ceres is caught off guard and tells her she really doesn't need to do that. She starts crying, overwhelmed by the fact that he actually bought her. Ceres feels a bit awkward, unsure how to comfort her. He waits for her to calm down, telling her he's happy to listen if she wants to talk. He realizes she's exactly his type. Shizuko reveals the truth. She was sold off by her own husband. Ceres is completely shocked by the betrayal. She explains that Zekt's father spent all their newfound money on gambling and booze. He tricked her into a trip to town just to sell her into slavery. Ceres asks if she could have written to Zekt, but she says no. Zekt always hated her strictness and preferred his father. She recalls how Zekt's father used to mock her, saying a woman's value drops after 20. He'd even joke about selling her to Ceres when they were kids. Despite the dark memory, she chuckles, saying she knows that man is going straight to hell. Her reaction gives Ceres a bit of a chill. He apologizes for making her relive those terrible moments. She smiles through the pain, saying she's just happy he was the one who found her. Ceres looks at her and thinks about how truly beautiful she is. He can't believe anyone would throw her away. He remembers how kind she was when his parents died, always being the one to cheer him up. To him, she was special. Shizuko offers to do anything he wants, even suggesting she cook him something tasty. Ceres smiles, but his mind is elsewhere. He gets serious and tells her that he wants her to treat him as her boyfriend or even her husband. Shizuko is stunned into silence. She thinks he must be joking, pointing out that she's nearly twice his age. She can't believe he'd want someone like her. Ceres insists he's dead serious. He reminds her of the time he confessed his love when he was just a kid. Shizuko blushes, realizing how much taller he's grown since then. She thinks about how Zek took all the young girls for himself and left her behind. She finally agrees, saying she can be his girlfriend, at least until he finds someone he actually likes. Ceres looks genuinely happy with that. He takes her hand, and they walk through the city together. The bond between them is officially more than just master and slave now. Morning breaks over the city, and Ceres wakes up in an inn with Shizuko by his side. It's a quiet, domestic moment that feels a world away from his days with the heroes' party. He watches her sleep, thinking about how exhausted she must have been after everything she's gone through. She looks so much more peaceful now than when he found her in that cage. When she finally wakes up, he reaches out to hold her hand. They share a soft greeting, enjoying the rare feeling of a morning without any immediate danger or stress. Over a huge breakfast, Ceres suggests their next move, heading to the Adventurers Guild. He figures it'll be a lot easier to travel and earn a living if they're both registered as a formal party. Shizuko is absolutely loving the food, admitting she hasn't had the chance to eat out like this since she got married. Seeing her so happy over a simple meal makes Ceres even more glad he bought her. Ceres mentions he's looking forward to her home cooking too, and she promises to make him whatever he wants as long as he provides the ingredients. He realizes her maturity and kind nature make her perfect wife material. He thinks about the girls in Zek's party and how none of them can compare to Shizuko's refined beauty. He's realized he much prefers being with someone who makes him feel at ease like this. They head to the guild office, and Ceres steps up to the counter. He tells the receptionist he wants to register Shizuko as an adventurer and form an official party with her. The receptionist, Sally, takes one look at Shizuko and starts acting like a total snob. She mocks Shizuko's age, saying she's past her prime to be starting out as an adventurer. Shizuko doesn't back down, calmly revealing that she actually used to be an adventurer before she got married. Even Ceres is surprised, having had no idea about her hidden past. Suddenly, the guild master, Verdeer, bursts onto the scene. He looks absolutely stunned and immediately bows, apologizing profusely for his staff's rudeness. It turns out Shizuko is a legend. Verdeer recognizes her as the dark-haired healing hand, a top-tier healer who was supposedly the best in the land back in her day. Ceres is reeling from the reveal. He thought he was just helping out a kind woman, but she turns out to be a former S-rank powerhouse. Shizuko just laughs it off, looking a little embarrassed by the attention. Verdeer explains that since she's been away so long, they can't put her back at S-rank immediately, but he'll reinstate her at A-rank. Ceres realizes he just formed a party with a literal elite. They start browsing the quest board to find their first mission together. Ceres spots a bounty for an Earth WYRM. It's a dangerous target, but one he's confident he can handle solo. Shizuko insists on coming along to help. Ceres worries about her safety, but she promises to just hang back and watch while he does the heavy lifting. He reluctantly agrees. As they head out of town, Shizuko reminisces about her old adventuring days. It turns out the mothers of all the other members in the heroes' party used to be on her team. She explains that they eventually retired and went back to their village to marry. Ceres can't wrap his head around how such strong women could all end up in such bad situations. Her expression darkens as she tells him her husband actually used a drug to knock her out before selling her to the slavers. Ceres is furious, realizing the man is even more of a scumbag than he thought. They stop for a quick lunch, and Shizuko pulls out a home-cooked meal she prepared at the inn. Ceres is instantly won over. It tastes exactly how real homemade food should. Lunch is over, and it's time to get down to business. They reach the canyon where the monster was sighted, and Ceres tells Shizuko to stay clear while he searches for it. A massive, winged, dragon-like creature erupts from the cliffs. It's the Earth WYRM they were hunting, and it looks ready to tear them apart. Ceres isn't intimidated. He draws his sword and prepares to strike, noting that for such a big beast, it's actually surprisingly slow. He infuses his blade with wind magic and charges forward. With one swift, powerful motion, he slices through the creature's tough hide. He lands a clean blow, cutting deep into the monster's neck. He expects it to go down, but then the ground starts to rumble again. Shizuko shouts a warning as a second, even more massive monster, an advanced crag WIRM, bursts out of the rocks right behind him. He's caught out of position. The giant rock beast roars, preparing to crush Ceres before he can even turn around. This thing is on a completely different level than the first one. But Shizuko isn't just watching anymore. She steps forward and casts Holy Wall, a high-level barrier that perfectly blocks the crag WIRM's charge. Ceres is floored by her speed. He realizes this is his chance. He starts chanting, gathering a massive amount of ice mana into his hand to finish the beast off. He unleashes a powerful freeze spell, encasing the entire crag WIRM in solid ice in an instant. It's completely immobilized and helpless. With the monster frozen, Ceres leaps high into the air, bringing his sword down with everything he's got. The ice shatters as his blade cuts right through the monster's head. Both WIRMs have been defeated, and the canyon falls silent. Ceres uses a bit of spatial magic to store the massive trophies in his item pouch. He's glad he kept some of his advanced skills even after leaving the hero's party. Back at the guild, he dumps the monster heads onto the floor for assessment. The receptionist screams in terror, while the guild master just looks impressed. Verdeer is baffled by how Ceres managed to take down a crag WIRM so easily. Ceres just gives him a too long, didn't read version of the fight, not wanting to over-explain. They walk away with a huge stack of reward money. Shizuko admits she was worried about him, but Ceres reminds her that he isn't a little kid anymore. Back at the inn later that evening, Shizuko is lost in thought. She's still struggling to believe that someone as young and talented as Ceres actually wants to be with her. She worries that he's only with her because he's lonely, and that he'll eventually leave her for someone his own age. The thought clearly weighs heavy on her heart. Ceres returns to the room, hiding something behind his back. He's been out spending some of that reward money on something special. He presents her with a beautifully wrapped gift. He says he rushed through the guild paperwork just so he could get back to her as quickly as possible. Seeing her happy smile is all the reward he needs. He tells himself that she's the only saint he ever needs to care about, unlike the fakes in the hero's party. He tells her straight up that every time he looks at her, he's captivated by her beauty. Shizuko is completely flustered, but she couldn't be happier. Ceres smiles warmly at her, telling her once again that she's beautiful. He wants her to stop calling herself old and putting herself down. It hurts him to hear her talk about herself that way. Shizuko thinks back to when she was just a neighbor and a friend to Ceres' mom. She supposes this path was inevitable, even if she never expected it to lead here. Back in the present, Shizuko beams with joy, thanking him for the wonderful night. Ceres isn't done yet, though. He's also bought a cake for them to enjoy. Ceres looks a bit sheepish, admitting he still has more things he wants to give her. Shizuko laughs, asking what's with the funny face he's making. They take a stroll through the city, the night breeze feeling wonderful against their skin. Shizuko is overwhelmed by his kindness, noting that no one has ever done so much for her before. Ceres pulls out a small box, telling her he has one last thing for her. Shizuko opens it to find a stunning necklace, and her breath catches in her throat. In this world, giving someone a necklace carries the same weight as giving an engagement ring would in Ceres' original world. Shizuko knows this, and she tells him she can't possibly accept it. She fears he'll only end up regretting this later, but Ceres looks her in the eye and tells her he means it. He loves her, and he wants her to know he's serious. Shizuko's eyes well up with tears. She tells him he can't possibly love someone like her, but Ceres just smiles and tells her she's perfect. He tells her he wants to keep her smiling by his side forever. Shizuko asks if he's really sure he won't regret this, her voice trembling with emotion. Ceres pulls her into a tight hug, promising he would never regret choosing her. He tells her she's the first person he's ever truly loved in this world. In that case, Shizuko finally accepts his gift and his heart. She hugs him back just as tightly, finally letting herself feel the love she's been denied for so long. As Ceres helps her put on the necklace, Shizuko asks him if it looks good on her. He looks at her with pure adoration and tells her it's perfect. She's beautiful. Shizuko is struck by how serious he is about her. She reflects on her life with her previous husband, Zector, who is always cheating and never once bought her anything. She thinks back to how Ceres used to say he wanted to marry her when he was just a kid. Back then, she assumed it was just a simple childhood crush. But now, seeing the man he's become, she realizes he meant every word. She knows that tonight will be the first time she's been with a man in over 10 years. While she's in a bath, Shizuko can't help but worry. She knows she's not as young as she used to be, and she wonders if she'll even be able to keep up with a man half her age. She wishes this were happening 10 years ago when she was in her prime. But she realizes she can't keep him waiting any longer. It's time to face the night. Shizuko steps out of the bath and into the bedroom, wrapped only in a towel. She sees the mark on her shoulder and realizes there's really no going back now. She lies down in bed, her heart pounding a dump in her chest. She closes her eyes and says a silent prayer to Milna, Ceres' late mother. She begs Milna for forgiveness for what she's about to do with her darling son. Suddenly, she feels a jolt as Ceres climbs into bed beside her. Ceres leans in and they share a deep, passionate kiss. Shizuko is surprised by how skilled he is, wondering if it's his first time or if he knows exactly what he's doing. The next morning, the sun shines brightly through the window. Shizuko wakes up feeling a bit dazed, wondering if she actually passed out and slept through the whole night. Ceres is already awake, lying there and watching her sleep. He tells her she looks so adorable that he couldn't help himself. Shizuko blushes, realizing it's nearly noon already. She suggests they should probably get up, but Ceres has other ideas. She tells him she's exhausted after last night, but Ceres seems to have a never-ending supply of energy. He wonders if he's always been this pent-up. Eventually, they make it a breakfast. Shizuko has made a special meal, even shaping the food into a heart. Ceres is impressed by her cooking as always. While they eat, Ceres thinks about their next move. He could take Shizuko and live a peaceful life, which would be more than fulfilling, but he wonders what she wants. Shizuko mentions she'd like to return to their home village for a bit. She feels her former husband, Zector, needs some serious punishment for what he did. Ceres agrees, as he was also thinking of heading back to Jima village. He wonders how the others, Haruka, Seo, and Misaki, are getting along. He remembers Haruka, who works at a restaurant with her husband Kazuma, a man who only cares about cooking and ignores her. Then there's Seo, who is basically kept as a household slave by her oppressive husband Kite. Shizuko looks worried, fearing their relationships have already fallen into a rut. Meanwhile, in a different part of the kingdom, the heroes' party is in a panic. Zect is shocked to discover that they are completely out of money. They go to the church to ask about their funds, but the bishop tells them that the necessary documents were never submitted. Zect is confused, having no idea what documents he's talking about. The bishop explains that all heroes are supposed to submit reports of their expenses and accomplishments. It turns out the submitter was always listed as Ceres. Zect finally realizes that Ceres was the one handling all the boring paperwork. Without those reports, the church can only give them enough for 1 month of basic living expenses. Zect is furious, but he realizes he has to get the paperwork done. He dumps a massive pile of reports on Mel, the sage, telling her it's her job now. Mel is overwhelmed, screaming that it's too much for her to handle while doing her other jobs. She begs Lita and Maria for help, but they just tell her to focus. Things only get worse when they try to eat. Zect complains that the stew Lita made tastes like crap. Lita snaps back, telling him to do it himself if he doesn't like it. They all find themselves wishing Ceres was back to make them his world-class omelets and steaks. Zect decides they'll just have to eat at an expensive restaurant tomorrow. A few days later, the once glamorous party looks like a total mess. They're running out of money, and everyone is getting stinkier by the day. Maria and Mel's hair is a disaster because they don't know how to look after it themselves. Ceres used to do it for them. They think about asking the church for help again, but they know they won't get any. Zek's party is in a state of complete disarray. They can't even handle basic chores or hygiene, and they're quickly realizing just how much Ceres did for them. Zekt is frustrated that they can't simply take on guild requests to make extra money because, as a heroes party, they're only allowed to take on state-level missions. In stark contrast, Shizuko is absolutely glowing with happiness. She suggests to Ceres that they should go into town to eat and maybe earn a little more money before they finally head home to Gymna Village. She's over the moon because she finally feels truly loved. Shizuko thinks back to how much Ceres has done for her. Not only has he protected her, but he's also been incredibly attentive, even shampooing and combing her hair in the mornings. She doubts anyone else has a husband who would go to such lengths for them. Meanwhile, Zekt is being mocked by those around him for his obvious stupidity. Shizuko reflects on how the heroes party never once thanked Ceres for everything he did. She feels a surge of protective anger, wanting to give Zekt a good wallop herself. Ceres, ever the provider, calls out to her that breakfast is ready, a delicious meal that puts the heroes party's meager efforts to shame. Shizuko thinks about her former husband, Zektor, and how he never would have cared for her like this, even when she was sick. She's delighted by the breakfast Ceres prepared, and her life finally feels like pure bliss. She's so happy she can't help but spin around in joy. Every day is so much fun for her now. Ceres is so kind to her, and at night, he shows his love for her with a fierce passion she's never experienced before. She realizes that she would reach out to save Ceres without a single moment of hesitation because, in her heart, she is truly his woman now. Out in the field, Shizuko is impressed by Ceres' strength as he easily takes down several monsters. Ceres brushes it off, explaining that he spent more than enough time hunting on his own to earn money, since he wasn't eligible for the funding Zek's party received. Shizuko is heartbroken to hear that Ceres had to take on side requests just to support himself while fighting alongside Zekt. She realizes just how much Zek party took him for granted, dumping all their chores on him as well. She pulls him into a compassionate hug, feeling his pain and sacrifice. She asks him what the biggest monster he's ever hunted is, and he mentions wyverns and earthworms. Shizuko is stunned. If he can hunt monsters like that, he's already incredibly powerful. Ceres explains that he mostly stayed in the back and dealt with smaller monsters so he wouldn't get in the way of the heroes. Shizuko is convinced that Ceres is already stronger than most S-rank adventurers. She pulls him even closer, her heart full of pride for the man he's become. Ceres, a bit flustered by the close contact, suggests they should report their hunt to the guild and finally head back to their village. At the guild, the receptionist apologizes for a slight oversight. It seems Ceres and Shizuko were still registered under the heroes party. She explains that she has now set them up as an independent unit under the Guiding Light banner, so they can still enjoy some of those privileges. The receptionist clarifies that their accounts are now completely separate from Zek's, so they won't be impacted by whatever trouble the hero gets into. Shizuko is pleased to hear that she's officially a member of Ceres' party now. The receptionist also reveals that Ceres has been officially awarded the title of Dragon Slayer. Shizuko is amazed, realizing that Ceres is even more capable than she had imagined. Ceres just shrugs it off with a humble smile. When a receptionist mentions that Zekt and Lita have only ever hunted demi-wyverns, Shizuko can't help but laugh. She mentions that Shizuko is actually Zekt's mother, which completely shocks the poor receptionist. Shizuko proudly declares herself to be Ceres' lover. The receptionist is still processing the news, but she quickly agrees that Zektor, Shizuko's former husband, is an utter scumbag. She then makes a suggestion to the newly in love couple that catches them both by surprise. Shizuko playfully asks what the receptionist meant by her being Ceres' slave. She laughs, saying that she's more like his slave in love. Ceres looks at her warmly, his mind already working on a new idea. Ceres asks Shizuko what she would say to a guild marriage. It's a way to officially register their partnership through the guild, making it legally binding and easier to manage their accounts and emergency contacts. Shizuko is a bit embarrassed, wondering if an old woman like her is really suitable for such a thing. Ceres doesn't hesitate for a second. He tells her he'd love to have a guild wedding with her. Shizuko is deeply moved, realize that this is nearly the same as being married in Ceres' old world. He asks her one more time, "What do you say?" Shizuko is hesitant, reminding him that she's much older and this is a legally binding commitment. But Ceres just beams at her, telling her he's absolutely sure. After all, he was the one who fell in love with her first. With a blush and a happy smile, Shizuko finally says okay. She realizes this will make her his legal wife, and she couldn't be happier about it. Ceres looks at her with nothing but love and devotion in his eyes. The receptionist is thrilled for them, even if she did upsell them on 2 matching rings for a gold piece. After they pay the registration fee, Ceres and Shizuko are officially wed in the eyes of the guild. The receptionist shouts out her congratulations to the whole room. The guild hall erupts in celebration. Ceres raises a mug and shouts to everyone that the drinks are on them today. He wants to see everyone drinking until the sun comes up. Shizuko stands by his side, beaming with pride and joy. As they prepare to leave for Gymna Village, Shizuko can't help but feel that she couldn't possibly be any happier. She's ready for whatever comes next, whether it's happiness or sadness, as long as she's with Ceres. Ceres knows he has a lot to look forward to, including seeing the other mothers in the village. They set off on their journey, all for one and one for all. Ceres thinks about the vow he's made to Shizuko and the others, knowing he'll be perfectly capable of handling everything. As the chapter ends, the stage is set for their return to the village and the start of a whole new adventure. To be continued.